everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Firefighting Female. With me today is my friend from the Wheaton Volunteer Rescue Squad, Suzanna Fitzpatrick. Hey, Suzanna.
Hey, Rhonda. How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining. So I know with work, and I should say you're a nurse practitioner and a volunteer paramedic, that you have many leadership skills and that you do many leadership courses. So I want to talk briefly about what you do as an established leader and how then we're going to correlate that to being a leader in the fire service. So what's going on at work?
So I am a clinical nurse practitioner. So I work in West Baltimore at a big hospital. I was an ER nurse and then got my nurse practitioner graduate degree. And then I got my doctorate of nurse practitioner, where I'm now teaching general systems theory leadership and practical leadership for nursing students, which I love. And I work 40 hours as a clinical NP, and then everything else is sort of extra. My mom had her PhD in leadership, and sort of everybody grows up thinking I'm not going to be like your parents. And I was into healthcare, and I started volunteering in the ER when I was 17 because I thought that would be neato. And I didn't know anybody who was in healthcare in my family, so I wanted to get some exposure about that. And my mom always sort of said like, oh, you should think about leadership and healthcare. And I was like, nah, I'm fine. And I liked to, work in the ED, which was really fun and crazy in West Baltimore, and volunteer, which was really fun in my 20s. And we would, run crazy, stupid calls and be up in the middle of the night and eating ice cream at 3 o'clock in the morning because that feels like an awesome thing to do. Sleeping on those nasty pillows, watching a movie in the, TV room. And I just sort of, was not interested in this formalized leadership thought process. But, as I sort of grew into a nurse practitioner, you get out of school and your first year, there's this huge, well-known phenomena of transition shock and imposter syndrome. And people would ask me, oh, could you explain this to me? Or can you educate this patient about this? Or can you give us a journal club about this? And I'm like, I don't know anything. Why are you asking me? And I would cry every day walking to the parking lot like, I can't do this. This is a nightmare. I'm going to go back being an ER nurse. I was so good at that. It was so wonderful. I know how to do that. But I sort of recognized that there was this piece that I was missing, which was sort of effective leadership traits and behaviors that I didn't know about that. But it does exist, and there are lots of things to help you think about how to be an effective leader. And when I joined Wheaton, I was 19, and that sort of felt like a fun thing to do. And I ended up having this awesome crew on Tuesday with you. And all of us were friends. And even though we would have stupid calls or yell at ech other in a call or yell at each other at the station, when something needed to happen, it always got done. And when we needed each other, it always got done. And, from Tuesday crew, one of the people I met there is the godmother of my children. Somebody else, her and another friend were in my wedding. Everybody on Tuesday crew was, invited to everything we ever had for each other. Just, having fun. We were just like family. But I did recognize that when you made a mistake, you were shamed from it. And when you made an error, there was no sort of constructive feedback, but just like you messed up again. I was saying to you in the car that I have a distinct memory of being very, very new and, very, young in age and in time, at a call in a supermarket, and somebody was having trouble breathing, and the paramedic said, turn on the oxygen, and I fumbled with it, and she hollered at me that I was an idiot, and that did not make me feel any better or get the work done any better or quicker or any of that. All it did was remind me of the shame that I was an idiot. And I still, 22 years later, remember that feeling distinctly. And I think that, everybody, if you ask them, what's an effective leader or not an effective leader? And if you said, what's a not effective leader? Think about that moment when you were with a non-effective leader. We can all remember those feelings of shame and all the feelings of that you're an idiot and feeling of undervalued and that you're not enough. We all know those feelings. Nobody needs to tell you, oh, have you ever felt that way? Yes, we've all felt that way. And when you say to somebody, tell me what an effective leader is, it doesn't have to be the most extroverted person or the smartest person in the room, but it's the person who felt like valued and you felt like you mattered and you counted. And that person doesn't need to be up on you or micromanaging you, but they were just there and you knew that they were there to help you. And I think that we do a bad job of that in many things. I think we do a bad job of that in healthcare organizations. I think we do a bad job teaching people how to do that. We just sort of say, oh, you're going to be an EMT? That's cool. Come do this class. And then, oh, you're done with your class? You're going to get checked off? Cool. And while you're getting checked off, you have a person who's 5 seconds older than you in time and experience telling you that you made a mistake and you messed this up and you should have done this and all of this stuff. And sometimes in front of the patient where you're feeling even more humiliated and shamed. And then you get to go debrief afterwards where they tell you suck again. I mean, none of that is like, man, don't I feel awesome about volunteering my time to feel this way? No, we don't feel that way. And then, then you're checked off and 6 months later you get to do it to somebody else. I mean, why do we do that? It's just awful. And I think that we don't sort of, do an exit survey of like, why are you leaving? Well, you guys made me feel really bad. Thanks so much. We don't do that. We just say like, oh, you're leaving. See you later. And I think we can do better. And every person wakes up in the morning wanting to be their best self. And I really do feel that way. There's a few, S-bags in the universe, but mostly you wake up and you want to be your best. And I don't wake up going, man, I'm going to tell Rhonda she stinks at being an EMT today. I would like to say I'm helping, I'm mentoring, I'm supporting her, motivating her. Are you? And so I think we just sort of do a bad job of saying like, hey, we're going to do this training together. How do you like feedback? Would you like me to give you constructive feedback? Would you like me to interrupt you in real time? Do you want me to let you go through the process? Do you want to debrief afterwards? I'm an emotional person. My emotion when I'm angry, sad, upset is crying, which I hate. So when you need to give me some feedback, I would like to take a walk so I don't have to look at your face, so you don't have to see me cry. And, it's just a skill that we don't teach people. And why? I mean, it's such an important thing to teach others to be successful. And we sort of forget the greater scheme that patient safety matters. Quality of care matters. All of those are affected by teamwork, collaboration, facilitating of organizational change, effective leadership. I'm just going to tell you suck. That's good enough. So, it's sort of been my journey over, in my 40s now, probably for the past 10 years, like we can do better. I don't know what that better is, but I'm going to figure that out. So I read more, and I did my doctoral, QI project on teamwork and collaboration, and now I'm in this other doctoral program about like how to teach people effective leadership and what traits and behaviors people feel like. I finished my doctorate, and somebody's like, oh, you want to teach leadership? I'm like, yeah, that sounds good, but do I know anything about it? No, but I am on a personal quest for myself to, teach other people to be better. I get my most success and happiness from helping another person feel successful. And there's this concept of invisible leadership where you don't need to say anything, but I can see that you are just killing it and just doing awesome. And in the year we spent together of me training you, whatever, and I see you doing that, I know that there's a tiny, tiny bit of me in there that's helping you shine. And I don't need you to say, Suzanna, you help me. It just makes me feel the best watching you just kill it. So I hope that I can help other people do that. And, that has been a full-time struggle, I think, for all people, right? We all want to evolve and be better and sort of improve ourselves and figure out how to be. And I definitely was not like this 15 or 20 years ago, but, I can be better. Can't we all? So I'm trying to do that.
Yep, nobody's perfect. It's interesting how we remember how you brought up just a memory from so long ago about something that made you feel so small. And I've got so many of them. I remember my first day at the academy in fire class was a disaster in its own right because I had no idea. It was my first time even putting on gear. And it was education through intimidation. And it didn't work because somebody's yelling at you when you're trying to learn something that you've never done before. And I so badly wanted to say, not just who do you think you're speaking to, but why are you treating me like this? I've never touched any of these things before. And now I'm trying to balance a helmet, trying to wear gear, and you're yelling at me. And now I'm trying to like crawl through a maze. It was any little thing like that. And over time, people realized that that form of education didn't work. And that form of leadership doesn't work either. Belittling people, yelling at people, it just doesn't work. And maybe part of the fire culture a long time ago was, I've gone up the chain of command. I have advanced through the ranks. I have more knowledge than the probie. So I'm going to treat them terribly. Every person had that first day. Every person had that first year. We've all made mistakes. We all learn from our mistakes. That's how we grow and become great. So as opposed to telling somebody they've done something wrong, especially in front of their peers, patients, the hospital staff, say, hey, listen, you did A, B, C, and D, but if you did this differently, your outcome would have been better, as opposed to saying, what the heck is wrong with you? Have you lost your mind? Why would you have done that? So communication is huge. Understanding that you are not perfect and that you were there day 1, too, should mean that you do not belittle anybody. An effective leader is somebody that builds somebody up, not knock somebody down. Because as a leader, you want people that are lower in rank or under you to grow. That shows your success in being a leader by having people achieve greatness. And I don't think that a lot of people understand that. Maybe it's just a fear of, well, is somebody going to take my place? I've heard people say that, where if I give somebody too much knowledge, then they're going to be more superior than me. And we've grown up in a quasi-military world where initially it was knocking somebody down. But in this world, care and compassion, understanding education is what is going to bring about success. So I think those are some good leadership qualities. Listening is also huge because not everybody comes from the same background. Not everybody has the same, for lack of better words, mental capacity. People learn differently. So if I teach you something, the person standing next to you still may not get it. So I would never say, well, why can Suzanna do this, but you can't do it? As opposed to saying, well, let's figure out a way that you're going to understand. And I think we all have to take a step back and look at that aspect also to say, we want to be a team. We want to be perfect because you're only as good as your weakest person. So why not make that weakest person be strong in an effective way of leadership? Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, so much to be said for there. I think that, lots of organizations and healthcare and society, right? It was in healthcare, you worked in a hospital, you had the male doctor telling the women nurses what to do and what the patient to do. And that was just it, right? No questions, no concerns, no nothing. This is what we did. And so, we've all evolved there's lots of people in lots of different positions from different backgrounds who look differently, who speak differently, whose gender identity is different, whose sexual orientation is different. And, all of them have just as much say and buy-in to take care of somebody as anybody else. And I think that, the sort of older in time generation is used to a certain way, and it's difficult to change. I mean, change is a hard thing. Change is, the only thing that's going to keep happening, but it is a hard thing to do. And figuring out how to change thoughtfully, I think, is also important, right? Because we want to change things differently and drastically and make sure that everybody is heard and equity is there and people's, cultural safety is there and their emotional bandwidth is just as good. But, we all have to get there together. And so I'm not saying we should tolerate the bad behavior, but recognize that change is hard for all people and give them the tools to be effective and give them the tools to change. And yes, going through the ranks, good job, you've been here 20 years. That just shows you're older. That doesn't mean you're smarter or more knowledgeable or more interesting or better leaders. But have we given them any tools to be more successful? No. So, I think that it's a growing need to have more professional development training, both individually and in group-like settings, and figuring out what not just you need, but what your group needs, what your station needs, what are the service needs, because it's going to be different. And that's okay, too. And to have frequent checkbacks and frequent check-ins and how are things going and do we feel like this is working and giving people ample opportunity to sort of share and say, like, this is not working for me. And here's why. Because I don't think it's awesome to say, this stinks, and then long pause. Well, this stinks because of this, and I think we should do this. And, you just sometimes have to change it up. And it doesn't mean it's going to work, but you got to do something because this is stinking right now. And I think that intimidation piece was something that was very prevalent in lots of organizations and not just the fire department and not just in healthcare. And that is not fine. I don't think we should tolerate it now. I don't think we should tolerate it then. And we just need to, move forward to try to better ourselves. And, again, feel like, did I do the right thing? Did I motivate that person? Did I check out their nonverbals and see that they were like really feeling great about themselves, or was I making them feel bad? Again, and giving somebody feedback, I would encourage people when they do mess up, most of the time, when you make a boo-boo. And so saying to somebody, how'd that go? Right? most of the time they get it. They're like, that was terrible, and this is why it was terrible. Great. Say more about that and let them guide their own feedback, because oftentimes you don't need to. There are a few times you're like, dude, you made a big boo-boo, and they didn't recognize it. But most of the time, people are very self-aware when they made a mistake, and they're going to be 100 times harder than themselves than you could ever be to them. So, seeking out constructive feedback, seeking out positive feedback, we're so terrible about that. We're so terrible to say, not just like, great job, Rhonda, but just, great job, Rhonda. You really made that patient feel heard and valued, and you did a great job with their assessment tools, and I just want to tell you I'm really proud of you. Like, why is that so hard? Do we feel like that's going to be vulnerable or effeminate or not appropriate or seen as weak? No. Good job for you for giving that feedback. So we just got to keep being better.
Agreed. I remember there is a captain, unfortunately, he's retired now in Montgomery County, and his goal when he became a captain was to take every person that was on his shift and advance them to the highest rank that they could possibly be, or chose to be, because not everybody wants to be an officer, but to be a Fire 3, to be an apparatus driver, just to do more than just be complacent with where they were. And he would talk to people one-on-one. Another thing that's important too is that one-on-one conversation. Never chastise, never do anything that's horrible to anybody in general, but especially do not do it in front of their peers. And that was his claim to fame. He would always say, you know what? You're brand new. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? I'm going to get you there. And that's what he would say. And they would work together. Anytime that you would run a call with his shift, you knew, first of all, you can see the teamwork. They were together. There was never any issues. They all worked together. They were all exactly equal, whether they were day one to retirement. Not saying that that is something that has to be for everybody, because you did earn your rank. You did earn your leadership value to whatever station you're in by educating yourself and by advancing. So you do have more knowledge, but share that knowledge. There is no need to ever keep anything to yourself. Share it, become an effective leader, and do well. Because people will remember that. We remember the bad stuff. I also had an experience with a medic, and it was so funny. I hadn't seen this person in probably about 5-6 years. And we all went out and had dinner and drinks the other night. And I said, I will never forget the call that I ran with you. It was about 4:00 in the morning. We had been up all night, and you had started a line. It was a difficult line to start because this person had no veins. And you got the line, you were proud, and you told me your one job is to make sure that I do not lose this line. So I was holding, and then next thing I know, I turned around for a minute and it slipped out. And this person was like, you had one job. What is wrong with you? Now I got to figure out how to get this line back in. And I was like, I will never forget that. So you forget the bad, but you remember the good too. And you remember who helped you get to where you are in your life. And there's no reason why we should not incorporate how to become an effective leader in the course of our academy classes. It should be something that's mandatory for any person, whether they want to become an officer, a master, a Fire 3, whatever. They want to be a paramedic, anything. It's important for anybody, and not just in the fire service, in life in general. That's how we grow. That's how we become a great society.
But to that point about that person who like hollered at you for messing up your IV, I mean, we all are going to make mistakes, right? I'm not going to be my best every day. I'm going to be like, bah, 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 and get pissed at something. But like, we all are self-reflective about. So whether I can do it in real time or the next day, just so you know, I'm really sorry about that. That was not about you. I was up all night. I had a thing with my wife. I apologize. I took it out of you. It was not your fault.
Yep.
You know what? That's fine too, right? And you would have remembered that. You'd be like, man, I really got yelled at, but he circled back with me and that made me feel awesome. You would have remembered that forever.
Right.
Because, you know, we all make mistakes. We all say things we shouldn't have, and there's nothing you can do about it. But you definitely can go back and say, just so you know, because it's never about that person. Hardly ever, right? It's a moment in time that's a reflection of something else that's happening with you. And so owning that and say, this was not about you. And you don't have to go into detail about your personal life, but a small blip of this was not about you. I'm having a thing at home, or I'm not feeling my best, or I was up all night, or my dog is dying, or I'm just having a thing. All of that is fine. But I think saying those vulnerabilities out loud to recognize that it's hardly ever about the person you're yelling at or said the inappropriate thing to, I think is a growing thing that I totally agree with you. It would be wonderful if during paramedic school, during fire school, during whatever, that we had a 2-hour session that's about how to give feedback, how to give constructive feedback, how to own when you make a mistake, how to build people up. And, to your point about that officer who was helping his crew, I mean, yes, good for you. That should be the standard, not the exception, right? The standard should be, hey, I'm going to meet with you. What's going on with you? What do you see your professional goals with? How can I help you? That should be out of every leader's mouth, and it's just not. And having one-on-one time to have a communication with the people you're leading is most important, because there's, might be 1 or 2 leaders, but you got a lot of followers, and people forget the followers are one that do the work. And so if you don't have followers who are helping you do the work is not going to get done. So I commend that person for doing it, but I would hope that is the standard. It's not, but I hope it will be.
I know. I hope it will be too. And you always remember that person that helped you.
Mm-hmm.
And that person's help will help you say, hey, listen, this person helped me to have success, and now I want to pay that back.
Mm-hmm.
And that's effective. So good leadership skills. Don't berate somebody. Build them up. Listen, communicate. All of those things are hugely important. And remember, everybody had a day 1. Everybody had a day 100, a day 1,000. And we're not perfect. We're going to make mistakes. Talk through it, educate each other, support each other, and make each other great. That's the whole thing, because truly you are as weak. What is it? You're only as good as your weakest person. That's what we say. So why not have everybody be effective and powerful? It makes you better. It makes your crew better. It makes our community better. We're giving better service. We're going home happier. We're having better family life that way. We're not experiencing, PTSD, possibly moral injury at work, because that's huge too. If you have a wonderful crew and then for whatever reason your officer is detailed to another station or has to leave or retires or what have you, and now you've got somebody completely different that knocks you down, well, there goes the morale of your crew. There goes your own personal morale, and your own potential sometimes will be knocked down. So what are some tips that we can give to people that are already in leadership positions and people that are just starting and want to eventually become leaders?
I think that we sort of don't always understand our intent versus perception. So my intent is I'm motivating you or teaching you or helping you grow, but the perception is not that. So I think to sort of know where you are and sort of get your own baseline, we do these annual reviews, and I'll tell you, I'm leading you. I'll be like, hey, Rhonda, you need to work on these things, but nobody's really giving them to me. Maybe my superior is, but my followers are not. So I think it's really important to sort of do a 360 evaluation of yourself. And that's asking people above you or equal to you and above you to give you some honest feedback about how you are. And it's a great opportunity to provide constructive criticism for somebody who needs to grow. I mean, writing on a piece of paper like that guy sucks is not exactly constructive criticism. You can say, the tone or the nonverbals or the communication or the silence makes me feel, right? People do really well with I statements of how you make me feel. And again, that goes back to the intent and the perception. So I think getting your baseline of where you are as a leader and understanding how you are perceived in a group is really important. And then once you have that, see what your deficiencies are and things you can grow on. Right? We all have lots of opportunities to grow. You are not good at giving feedback. You are too quiet during times of positivity. I need more physical time with you. The sort of 5 love languages really do come clear for relationships too. Like I need more one-on-one time with you to sort of understand what we're doing together. I need more time for you to help me learn a new piece of equipment or a new assessment skill. I need you to give me more real-time feedback. I need more drills, blah, 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 or the way you do it makes me feel, right? So it's always about how the person feels. And then after you have that, go seek guidance from clinical experts. I always encourage people to go outside of the realm that they're in, only because we think we're sort of in this bubble. We're in the fire department bubble or the healthcare bubble, but there's lots of people who are experts in all kinds of things that we could improve upon. And go see those people, because they not only maybe could help you with your small lens, but also give you a global view of how to improve not just who you are, but who your family life or your station or things like that. based on their sort of overall experience, which I think is really helpful. I also think it's good when you're new I tell my students this when they're looking for jobs, to ask when they're applying for jobs, who's going to mentor me? What does my precept time looks like? What does my 1-year trajectory look like? What does my novice time look like? How much time do you give me professional development? How much one-on-one time am I going to have? Who is going to be my both formal or informal mentor during my time? And I think those are really important questions. And when you're getting hired by the fire department, you can't necessarily ask for those things or question those things because you get out of rookie school and you're assigned a station and that's just it. But you can sniff out the environment. You can ask other people who are sort of new in that area, like, how's it going? What does this look like? And I do think there's an opportunity to sort of observe and see what the circumstances like. And then, you might not feel like you have the ability to say, this station is toxic and I don't like it because I feel undervalued or whatever. And you'll have to every person has to figure out how to navigate that and how uncomfortable it makes them feel and how much they're going to be able to tolerate. I don't think anybody should tolerate bad behavior, but I also can appreciate sometimes group dynamics when there's a new person really shifts things. So you might need to kind of lean into the new environment, sort of see how it's going. And if you're quickly understanding that, you being there is just sort of changing the dynamic some, and it's something that you can improve upon, offer to your, you should be getting either weekly or monthly or whatever kind of feedback from a mentor there. Either you're getting checked off on something or whatever, that on the checkout sheet or on the, one-on-one time to say, let's talk about how your emotional intelligence is doing. Let's talk about the behavior of this. Let's talk about feedback and how you're feeling led. Not because, people want to be mushy or sort of not think about the job, but so much of our job is not doing our job. It's so much of our job is not running calls. So much of our job is the extra stuff. Same thing with healthcare. So much of my job is not just the patient part. It's the charting, it's the communication, it's the teamwork, it's the QI projects, it's the original research, it's the, that, I really have to do an overall lens of like, how do I fit in those things? And then, really seek out, you almost always can find one person who's going to be your buddy and be like, I want to be like you, or how you're feeling. You seem like you have it going on. And number one, I can assure you that nobody ever does, right? All of us are feeling alone and vulnerable and we can't do it. But find that person and say, how are you? You are perceived as really successful and doing great and a great part of the team. I want to be like that. What are some tips for success? I think seeking the person that you align with and getting their sort of insight, I think is always really helpful. But, as we're integrating into new stations and new classes and things like that, remember that we have to work on ourselves and work on the group. So go finding a class, listen to a podcast, read books, find people who are going to support you and who are, I don't think you need to be around all like-minded people, but all people who make you feel your best is who you should be around. And when you're not feeling great, they're still going to be there to support you and sort of help you in your journey. So there's tons of conferences and things to read about. It sort of depends on what your platform is. If I want to listen to some people who is like new and innovative and has a different perception and a different lens than what I have been so familiar with in terms of, who I'm getting my training from. So I think it's doable, right? We can all improve on ourselves, improve on our situation, and seek other things. There's lots of ways you can professionally grow yourself and personally grow. And I think that just keep seeking out in new ways to grow yourself.
All good advice. I'm inspired. Seriously. Amazing. Thank you, Suzanna. Thank you for joining me tonight, for helping people to understand the power of leadership. Hopefully everybody will take a leadership course that's out there. I'm sure there are many. We just have to see what our counties and our states provide. I know everybody's from a different area. And do the best we can. Take care of one another. Build each other up. Until next time, see ya!